Hello, my name is Keith, aka LoLByTheNumbers, and welcome to another 2014 League of Legends World Championship video analysis. Once again, this is a video analysis, not a shoutcast, so there will be plenty of spoilers. I'm assuming you've watched the match, don't care about the outcome, or already know it. I'll be focusing primarily on macro level strategy, looking at team compositions, their win conditions, and how teams do, don't, and should be performing these win conditions. I'll also be taking a look at individual matchups, item choices, and individual play when it's relevant to the win or loss of a game, as well as anything else that comes to mind during the match. For this match, we have Samsung Blue against LMQ. This is their first match in the group stages. So without further ado, let's get into picks and bans. And this is one of the games that I like to say game was lost in pick and bans, and I'll talk about why as they come through. It's unfortunate when this happens, but one of my things I always like to say is, especially on the world stage, you want to assume everyone's on equal skill level. Therefore, don't pick yourself into a weak situation. It's pretty important, and we'll see how this turns out. So on Samsung Blue side, we see them banning Zilean, Alistar, and Nami. Zilean and Alistar are generally bans on the red side, but Samsung Blue, they just don't like them, they don't play them. On LMQ's side, we see Lee Sin, Ryze, Kog'Maw coming out. LMQ are knocking out one of the hyper carries, leaving up Tristana, because Vasily likes to play Tristana. So we're looking to get an advantage here. Lee Sin and Ryze being very generic bans as well. Samsung Blue end up picking up Thresh, very good support in Worlds. Has very high win rate, just all around good guy Thresh. On LMQ side, we see Kha'Zix, the number 2 jungler after Lee Sin. Lee Sin, Kha'Zix being the primary junglers. Good pickup, denial pickup as well. Forces Samsung Blue onto one of the lesser played junglers for Worlds. The pickup of Tristana, she's alright, as we see in this group stage, and going even further down into brackets, she really falls out of favor. We'll see once again why in this game. On Samsung Blue side, where they're going to pick up Maokai, and if you pay attention, Spirit's also going to hover over Yasuo. This should have been a huge warning sign for LMQ. However, they don't take note of this, and they let Yasuo go through, not in this rotation, but in the next rotation. I also think it's a huge mistake that Samsung Blue don't grab Yasuo in this rotation. There's no reason for them to pick up Jarvan here. Yes, maybe they're looking for the mid counter pick, but LMQ can get that anyways. On top of this, by picking up Jarvan, it really shows to LMQ that Samsung Blue have a big Yasuo composition. They already have knockups in the top lane and the bottom lane, and now they have one in the jungle, and they hovered over Yasuo. This should have been a massive warning sign for LMQ, and instead of grabbing this Braum Rumble pickup, they should have grabbed Yasuo as one of those. There was really no reason for LMQ not to grab Yasuo. Yes, they don't have as strong of a Yasuo composition, but it would be a huge denial to Samsung Blue, and it really needed to happen. When Yasuo has synergy from 3 targets, he's extremely deadly. It's very easy for him to get out of control. So this is a really poor play by LMQ, and a poor play by Samsung Blue by not just grabbing him instead of Jarvan, since LMQ already had their jungler. This pickup of Corki with Yasuo was actually really strong. Aside from the fact that Corki is just a lane bully and will do much better against Tristana than Tristana can do to him, this gives Samsung Blue something they need: wave clear. No one on Samsung Blue's team is able to really wave clear. Your best bet is Maokai Saplings. By picking up Corki, you really fill in this deficit, as well as getting a big mid-game power spike. On LMQ side, they finish off with Fizz, and this is a bad pick as well. Yes, Fizz can go on pretty even footing with Yasuo. Yes, he turns into a hyper-scaling carry late game, even way more so than Yasuo does. However, this means LMQ now have no wave clear. This is a huge mistake by LMQ, Well, what happens when you have a team that has no wave clear? If you get behind, you stay behind for the rest of the game. They have 3 high scaling champions in Fizz, Tristana, and Kha'Zix, and a very weak mid game that's only there because of Rumble. So if LMQ fall behind in the early game, in the mid game, they have no way of stalling out the match. They have no way of coming back. There's effectively nothing they can do at that point to win the game, which means that essentially LMQ could lose the game in the first 10 minutes or so of this match. And they actually end up doing so. So this Fizz pick for their last pick was really bad and really hampered their ability to grab wave clear. We could have seen a Ziggs or a Xerath would have been really strong here, since you're going to have Samsung Blue's team all diving in, having that solid AoE against the 4 frontliners of Samsung Blue would have been really strong. It would have also played better with the Rumble, adding slows, knockback that can knock people into his ultimate, as well as just more massive AoE. Tristana and Kha'Zix could have then gone for the reset kills afterwards. There was just more synergy there that could have happened from LMQ's team, and the Fizz pick doesn't fit into their composition at all. So, LMQ, what do they have going for them? Let's talk about their win condition. LMQ's win condition is scale up into the late game. They need Fizz, Tristana, and Kha'Zix to all reach like 3 items before they really become strong. At least Fizz starts to get strong around Lich Bane Zhonya's. Tristana really needs her Infinity Edge, Static Shiv, and then a BF Sword. And Kha'Zix, he takes time to scale simply because he doesn't get as much money from the jungle. One thing I'm going to point out real quick about this Kha'Zix, he doesn't pick up his evolved spike racks, which is a really bad choice since LMQ has no wave clear. They really need to get that wave clear. As well as the additional slow would be something that would help out in their AoE, just weakening people for Fizz to get for Fizz to get in for the kill, and then to start reset chains on LMQ's team. So aside from scaling into the late game, LMQ have tried to shore up their mid game weakness with Rumble. Very strong at the team fights. Even alone, he can kind of carry mid-game dragon objectives and turret objectives, but Samsung Blue's team is super strong in the mid-game, so Rumble is actually not going to be able to cover this deficit, especially because Samsung Blue know that LMQ's team is hinging on this Rumble being strong in the mid-game. Samsung Blue are going to put a lot of focus onto him and really shut him down, and this is one of the simple points to Samsung Blue's victory is shutting down this Rumble. If they shut down Rumble, Samsung Blue deny LMQ's entire early and mid game. And when you deny the entire early and mid game of a team that's hyperscaling and has no wave clear, there's nothing else for them to do. And we're really going to see this come into play here. This little play by Ackerman, it does get him really hurt. At least he doesn't burn his flash, and it gets him some EXP. What really should have been done as soon as he noticed that it was a 2v1, you can expect the 4 people up top. Rumble should have gone to another lane, just move bottom, go find Kha'Zix, just get out of this top lane in this 2v1. You're not going to have any strength, especially after he sees that ward go down in the creep line. There's no reason for him to return to this top lane and just get absolutely denied. He might as well just ran straight to Dragon or join Kha'Zix in the jungle somewhere. Anything would have been better for this Rumble to do instead of returning to the top lane. So aside from that, since LMQ get really denied on this Rumble, they lose all their mid-game power, and this lets Samsung Blue have complete control of this game, as we'll come to see. Without any solid wave clear, as mentioned before, LMQ can't delay, and since they're going to need about 2.5 items each against Samsung Blue's single item on their Corki and Yasuo, the power spike difference is massive in this match. So let's look at Samsung Blue's team. What do they have? What we see here is very much a Yasuo composition. We have knockups in the middle from Yasuo himself, and top from Maokai, the bottom lane from Thresh, jungle from Jarvan. There's opportunity for everyone to set up Yasuo. And while Yasuo compositions don't win games on their own, what it allows is Yasuo to really pick his targets. It gives him 4 different ways to get into the back line. It gives him 4 different ways to hit high priority targets. And it just allows Yasuo to pick and choose his ultimates instead of LMQ being able to dodge 1 or 2 skills. Now they have to dodge 4 or 5. So it makes it really difficult. So aside from this, and what Yasuo compositions do is it allows Yasuo to provide a lot of mid-game power. It turns the point where he's at one of his weakest situations into a point where he's really strong. Just that guaranteed knockup really is super powerful, and that's all that really can be said about that. Okay, so aside from the Yasuo composition, Samsung Blue also have huge mid-game strength in Corki. Super powerful in the mid-game. So once he gets level 6, he gets massive poke. The Trinity forces a huge item spike. Case in point, real quick, LMQ should not have been chasing this. Yes, they have the HP advantage, but they're down like 3 levels. We got, Corki's 4, Rumble is level 2, LMQ more, Braum is level 2 to Jarvan's 3. The only one who's on par is Kha'Zix is level 3 with Thresh. There was no reason for them to be chasing this even though they were a little bit ahead on HP. Rumble is LMQ's teleport. Samsung Blue have Maokai there for the teleport. It was just a bad play, and it gets LMQ behind yet again. This Rumble, almost 7 minutes into the game, is only level 3. Going back to Samsung Blue's team composition, aside from the strong synergy with Yasuo, there's, as said before, the strong mid-game power spike of Corki. On top of that, Jarvan has a good, strong mid-game. Maokai also has a decent mid-game, though he wants to scale up with his Rod of Ages. In skirmish compositions, particularly like Samsung Blue's is, he's really strong, providing that snare and the knockup as well as the damage protection aura. Since LMQ are running a very weak mid-game team, that damage protection aura does wonders against Rumble and prevents the rest of LMQ from really being able to have enough upfront damage to make use of their own reset ability. So Samsung Blue's win condition in this game is simply going to be win the mid game. The other part of it is shut down Rumble. A big part of winning the mid game for Samsung Blue is going to be shutting down Rumble, because that's LMQ's only source of mid game power. Every other champion is much weaker than LMQ's respective champions, and we see this come into play in this early mid game fight. Samsung Blue are just the stronger champions there. On top of just being stronger straight up fighting, Samsung Blue has 3 champions with CC: Maokai, Jarvan, Thresh, whereas LMQ have only Braum in their lineup for any type of hard CC. If you're ever going into a very large hard CC deficit, you really have to wait for your tankiness and your items to allow you to survive past the chain CCs. You should never be fighting early game team fights like that, as you're just going to lose simply because of lack of control. So when Samsung Blue reached this mid game, in this game particularly, it's going to be at the second dragon, where they would want to start to turn on the heat, since LMQ were able to take the first one pretty easily. By the time the second one comes around, Corky's going to be running on 2 items with Fade Sheen. Yasuo is already got almost to a static shiv. He's got his Zeal. We see a huge level difference between Samsung Blue's team and LMQ. There's a much, even if they were on even footing, there's a much bigger power spike in the mid game from Samsung Blue. If they didn't want to run the dragon fights around level 8 or 9, they could wait until Corky gets his Trinity Force, and that's probably going to be the point in this game when Samsung Blue have the largest lead in power. With that large lead of power, they simply need to start rotating around the map, taking turrets and taking objectives. Since LMQ have no wave clear, since LMQ really have no poke, especially because Kha'Zix does not pick up the evolved spike racks, Samsung Blue can simply sit at towers and whittle them down without any fear of LMQ being able to retaliate. Even if Rumble throws out his ultimate to try and cause an engagement, Samsung Blue can all just dash away and back off. It's not going to be that strong. They just need, as long as Samsung Blue back away and split off the damage, they can sit together. They don't need to engage into a fight. So Rumble Ultimate is not going to be very strong as an engagement tool. It's much stronger as a disengagement tool against Samsung Blue. But since there's no poke or wave clear on LMQ, Samsung Blue have no need to engage to force anything. They can take turrets, they can take dragon without forcing fights. They're just going to be that much stronger as a team. Once again, if you look, it's 11 minutes. Rumble is still level 5. At one point, Maokai had 2 levels on him. Samsung Blue did the appropriate thing and shut down this Rumble. This is where you'd really want your Rumble to shine, at this 11-minute Dragon mark. Unfortunately, Dragon is down before Rumble is even able to get his ultimate. So at this point in the game, it's really over, and it's unfortunate to say that, but it's true. Samsung Blue have a 2.5k gold lead, and there's no one on LMQ's team that's really threatening to them. Rumble possibly could be, but since he's so far behind, a lot of his power has been shut down. And Samsung Blue can simply move through this game and take objectives as a team. Towers should be free to them. Neutral buffs should be free to them. As we saw, Dragon was free. LMQ have no business fighting against Samsung Blue's team, especially with the large synergy with Yasuo, especially with the Samsung Blue essentially having 4 frontline champions standing inside of Maokai's aura. There's just a lot of potential damage from LMQ lost due to this shutdown of Rumble, due to this Maokai aura, and due to the fact that LMQ is running these hyper carries that need to scale and won't be for quite a while. At this point, it's going to take until about the 35-minute mark before LMQ can think about taking a fight. But getting to that 35-minute mark is pretty much impossible for LMQ because they have no way to defend. This means that Samsung Blue can just roll through tower to tower to tower if they chose. There's nothing to stop Samsung Blue from, say, going bottom and heading straight for the inhibitors, honestly. It's highly possible that Samsung Blue, if they decided, could take inhibitor turrets. It would require a bit of dedication, maybe a good 5-6 minutes, but they could potentially do it. It would lose a lot of farm in the side lanes, so it's not really the recommended path, it's just a potential path. The more recommended path for Samsung Blue is going to be a slow starve of LMQ. Push up all the lanes and then move into tower push. Pick either top or bottom where you want to set your focus, and then do the rotational plays. Send Maokai either top or bottom, whichever lane you're planning to push, and have your 4-man squad in the middle pushing the middle turret. When you're running this 4-1 split, especially when you're so much stronger as a team, what this allows you to do is place wards in the jungle between your 2 lanes and look for rotational mistakes by the other team. You constantly put pressure on mid and bottom turret. Whenever you have a creep wave in the middle, you attack the middle turret. When the creep wave dies, you run through the jungle, move to the bottom turret, do the same thing with that creep wave, especially since the mid creep wave will reach middle before the bottom creep wave reaches the bot turret. This gives you a good amount of time to make your movements through the jungle. This also allows you to keep up vision denial in the jungle with 2 or 3 pinks, lots of sweepers. You can effectively see every map movement of the enemy team in their jungles. And here we see Samsung Blue have kind of set it up on the top side. They got some good wards in the jungle. They went to look for rotational mistakes by LMQ. Fortunately for LMQ, it was them who picked out Samsung Blue. And since Samsung Blue didn't have Corki in there, they were losing a lot of power, especially since he's sitting on his Trinity Force. He is the strongest person on Samsung Blue at the moment. Even in a 4v5, Samsung Blue were able to disengage very safely. Corki got a little bit of time on this bottom turret. And so, going back to the point about the rotational mistakes, and when you're this far ahead and there's no wave clear on the other team, how you force down turrets is you slowly whittle them down, and you just don't bother giving up on them. Let's see. Again, we see with just vision control, Samsung Blue find the catch, they find the mistake. They're not really doing it as a team, it's still a little bit more solo Q-esque, but they are that strong. They got a 4K gold lead. And Corki and Thresh are pretty safe. So let's take a look at the topside jungle. I'll talk a little bit how you do those rotational mistakes. The topside jungle, for Samsung Blue at least, going into LMQ's red side, is the better choice. The red side jungle of the enemy team is generally the better choice when you're looking for rotational mistakes. There's more opportunities for you to deny vision, to put out wards. There's more area for the opponent's side to have to watch with their wards. They need more vision to cover your movements, and it's a lot harder for them to be able to do this. On top of this, moving from the mid turret to the top turret for Samsung Blue takes less time and is a lot safer than for LMQ to move from their mid turret to the top turret. Good ward near the base wall can catch out LMQ as they're trying to rotate, and since they'll be rotating slower, simply due to having to follow Samsung Blue rather than lead them, Samsung Blue could potentially collapse while they're trying to rotate, force a fight onto LMQ's team. Otherwise, they head back top, they get the damage on the turret, then they rotate back bottom and look for the same thing. Look for that rotational misplay, some way to catch LMQ out, and then go back and look for turret damage. And here we do see Samsung Blue have done it at the Blues side. This is particularly because Dragon is up. They look to get catches at Dragons. They've got lots of wards inside of inside of LMQ's jungle. And this allows Samsung Blue to easily pick a fight against LMQ when LMQ try and go look at Dragon. I honestly don't know why they're trying to look at Dragon. I guess Ackerman as Rumble really wants to try and fight this because this was where Rumble's generally strong. But there was no chance in anything for them to fight this Dragon. LMQ would need like 3 Tristanas to even be able to come close to being able to fight against Samsung Blue at this time. And we see just how much damage Corki's able to put out. So once again, Samsung Blue are playing this pretty correctly. They're doing the slow whittling down. I don't have any real qualms about them taking their time in this match. Samsung Blue's team scales pretty decently, and as long as they don't wait too long, LMQ can't catch up. Now with the 7,000 gold lead, instead of needing to wait till about the 35-minute mark, it's going to be closer to the 40-minute mark where LMQ are able to come back. And here we see LMQ, they're fighting over this blue buff, but it's something they can't take. There's no reason for them to even be near it. This is like the third or fourth time that LMQ were looking to fight in situations they shouldn't be. And it's just growing the lead for Samsung Blue. So what could have been done in this situation? What could have LMQ have done in this game? Well, first and foremost, they really needed some better plays at the early game. Rumble going top a lot. Should have recognized that he's, as soon as the 2v1 happened, that he's going to get super denied. Getting that level 2 early from the sneaky bush play was really strong. Should have taken the advantage that he got and just moved away, gone somewhere else. Just gone straight for the jungle, gone for bottom dragon into the turret. LMQ maybe potentially could have gotten the bottom T1 and dragon instead of just getting dragon in the early game. Rumble had also gone bottom. He wouldn't have gotten killed for first blood. There was just a lot of misplays, I believe, in the early game that really hurt LMQ's team, especially when it came to their one strong point in the mid game, the one champion they had to do well with. And so this is a major problem. They didn't recognize what they had to protect, whereas Samsung Blue recognized who they needed to destroy. After the Rumble getting so far behind, it was pretty much over for LMQ. All their options had been denied them. They were slowly going to lose. The best they could have done was to continue to farm, try and draw the game out as long as possible, avoid fighting in the jungle, and just try and figure out ways to keep Samsung Blue from pushing. And for the most part, they've done this. Samsung Blue have only gone into the bottom tier 2 turret, and that was only after already getting kills at the blue buff. So if LMQ had drawn this game out, avoided looking at dragon, avoided looking at their buffs, and just tried to get as much as possible in trades, in the lanes, maybe looking when dragon's about to spawn, LMQ could have sent Tristana, Rumble, Braum up top. They could have pushed down the top turret, traded top tier 1 for the dragon. Even though it's a really bad trade, there was no other option for them. They couldn't go contest dragon, so they might as well have looked for something. And that's what you got to do when you're behind. When you know you can't fight the other team, don't look to try and outplay them or something. Maybe you're going to be better, but once again, this is the World Championship, and everybody's on fairly equal skill levels. So what you want to do is you want to look for opportunities to make gold away from the other team. Fizz also could have moved from the middle lane, gone to one of the side lanes and just continually split pushed. Looked for that fight against Yasuo. Fizz isn't doing bad in this match. He potentially could have tried to fight that. Several wards would have allowed him to get some good escapes as long as he planned his route away through over walls and whatnot with Playful Trickster. Potentially could have drawn attention to himself and drawn out this game. And that was really all that LMQ could have looked to have done after that early game, is draw things out. They lost their mid-game power and didn't have wave clear, so they had to do something to draw Samsung Blue's attention. If they had been able to draw Samsung Blue's attention and draw out this game, just simply because of how Samsung Blue plays, LMQ might have been able to draw this into the 35-40 minute mark. As we see, it's 23 minutes. Samsung Blue still aren't really pushing into the turrets. They're still looking to sort of scale up their champions, even though they don't need to. They could have been pressuring this middle turret a long time ago. They could have been pressuring the top turret a long time ago. However, because of their roaming sort of rolling playstyle, LMQ really play into it, and Samsung Blue just keep getting farther and farther ahead. Imagine if this game was, say, instead of 15-2, it was still back at, say, 3-1 or 4-1. And then LMQ still had up their mid and top turret. at this point, it would have been a different game. Instead of a 12,000 lead, maybe it was a 4,000 to 6,000 lead. If the score was only 3-1 or something close to that. It would have taken a lot longer for Samsung Blue to finish this off, and because they're taking so long now, it could have been potentially possible that LMQ reached that late game phase. But as we see, Samsung Blue are so far ahead with this 14,000 gold lead. Instead of being 40 minutes, LMQ now need to wait till like 45, 50 minutes, where 5 items start to come into play even when you're down. It's just they're in a really bad spot, and because they're lacking wave clear, because they're lacking any real fight potential, the game is essentially over. From about the 10-11 minute mark, when Samsung Blue got this second dragon at the 11 minute mark, it was essentially Samsung Blue's game to lose. They had already won it, and it was all going to be all about how they played the rest of the game, whether or not they can close it out. Part of the reason they're able to close it out so well is because LMQ continued to try and fight them. What should have been a real low kill game sitting around the 3-1, 4-1 score instead is now a 15-2. And here's where we see vision denial. I'll talk about that real quick. When you're looking to attack Baron, you really want to take full control of it. Get several pink wards at the dragon pit. In the bushes, you see Samsung Blue has 2 here. They have one in the bush by the red buff. Unfortunately, they don't have one in the Baron pit, so what you could essentially think of this as is they were baiting that fight. They wanted LMQ to come contest it, and they were entirely ready for it. LMQ's jungle is littered with wards. Every single possible entrance point for LMQ is warded up by Samsung Blue. They wanted to fight LMQ, and they were baiting them into it. And this is something you can do. It's a little more risky, simply because Samsung Blue are letting the opportunity for Baron Steel come into play, but it paid off well. They had a plan for it. So what you want to take note of that is anytime you're going to do Baron, have this massive vision wall inside the enemy's jungle, so that you know all of their movements, you know how to respond, you know when to jump over the wall to go for the fight instead of Baron. Just really solid play at Baron by Samsung Blue. Real quick, I don't like how Kha'Zix didn't get his Evolved Spike Racks. I said this before. Evolved Spike Racks would have been a form of wave clear that LMQ really needed. Tristana grabbing her Static Shiv earlier could have helped that as well. They could have at least drawn out Tower Sieges a little bit with these 2 abilities. Not a whole lot, though. So once again, that's essentially the game. So let's talk a little bit about individual matchups real quick. We'll talk about Maokai vs. Rumble. I've mentioned it in other videos, especially in the very first game by Samsung White. I talk about it quite a bit because it's very important. One of the big things that Rumble does is build magic penetration, Haunting Guys, and Sword Boots, and this provides 30 magic pen. During the World Championships, we had the Negatron Cloak, which is no longer there, but a $700 purchase, or $720, whatever it was, purchase of a Negatron Cloak would actually give you 40 magic resist. And this is one way for Maokai to negate Rumble's 2,500 gold pickup of Sword Boots and Haunting Guys, and he does so with 700 gold. So it's a big benefit for Maokai to pick up an early Negatron Cloak and let his Rod of Aegis wait a little bit longer. It really allows him to survive in that lane even if Rumble gets ahead, and allows him to be the real bully. In this game, it wasn't really necessary, but that's one thing that Maokai can do in this sort of counter pick matchup. And here we see Samsung Blue just closing out the win with the Baron with all their power. There's not a real chance for LMQ. In the mid lane, I know I said I didn't like the Fizz pick. It's good into Yasuo. They have very strong dual ability. They run on similar power curves unless Yasuo has all this synergy with other people. So it's very volatile. Whoever gets ahead is going to stay ahead. And Fizz will eventually outscale even no matter what happens. But in this matchup, they really needed wave clear. They needed some AoE, something to sort of deny Samsung Blue's team and get some of that mid-game power. I hope this was informative, especially champion picks, how important they can be, particularly with wave clear, how to deny the other team their strategy in picks and bans. LMQ really had the opportunity, and they were even warned about the Yasuo pick. They could have completely stopped this. And while it wasn't the only factor for Samsung Blue's win, it was a linchpin, and it was a very safe, strong pick with their composition. There wasn't any reason to let it go through. Anyways, I hope the game was informative. I hope it was entertaining and enjoyable. Hope you had a good time watching. As always, the notes for this match can be found below, as well as the link to all of my 2014 League of Legends World Championship video analysis and notes. Once again, I'm Keith, aka LoLByTheNumbers, and thanks for watching.